Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dean Rogers Show. Today, we've got another very special guest, Mike Singletary. What's up, Mike?
What is up? Thank you for having me, man.
Of course. Dude, I'm stoked to have you here because for those that know me, I like to nerd out on data. I like to nerd out on technology. So when I heard you recently speak about the data, I was like, dude, this is probably the best timing because as we're filming this, the market's, kind of in this funky place. Some people are kind of waiting on the sidelines to see what's going to happen. So what better way to take control of your marketing by managing your data well. And so you got me all hot and bothered, excited to talk about data. But let me highlight you here, Mike. Let me get the people excited. So you've had some incredible accomplishments. You've done over 500 single family transactions. We're both in the 500 club. So right. Good place to be. You've raised over $10 million in private money capital. You have 3 successful companies. One in itself is impressive, but 3, you've got Skip Force, which we'll definitely talk a lot about today. You have ISA Pros, which we're going to talk about and touch on as well, which is where you're helping to train people's cold callers and making sure that you're taking advantage of those leads. And then you just have your Star House Acquisitions Company, which is where you buy and sell single family houses and land in Texas and Tennessee. So, which, by the way, those 2 markets I don't play in, but they excite me. So be curious to see what you think about that. So, dude, let's get in here. People, if you want to follow Mike, make sure to go to Instagram, Mike_Singletary3. So that's how you can connect with Mike on Instagram. Let's dive in, man. I'm ready to nerd out here.
Let's do it, brother.
So, you started, I'm sure like most of us, you got started in real estate, you got started in single family, and now have done over 500 transactions. Was that your bread and butter forever? Or have you always played in kind of different?
Oh man, my story is so much different from everybody else's. The reason why I like to share it is because it kind of shows other people that, hey, listen, man, it's not beyond your reach. I was a hairdresser for 30 years. Okay. What? So 8 years ago, I got into real estate. I own a high-end hair salon in Houston. And we built that salon, and it would only required probably about 10 or 15 hours for me. And I wanted to just go into something else. And I always, you're reading all the books. I'm an entrepreneur. I've never really had a real job. I've only worked for somebody maybe 1 year out of my whole life, So I always thought that real estate was the path to get me to the real freedom that I was and the life that I wanted, right? And so when I remember 9 years ago, maybe 9 or 10, I don't know. I remember going to the RIAs and not being able to pull that trigger, listen to these guys, these local RIAs, and thinking it was so far ahead of me. Like so far beyond what I was capable of doing. And then it's just, in a matter of 8 years, a lot of things can change if you just like put your head down and keep grinding, and so that's what happened.
Dude, what's your favorite cut? What's your favorite haircut, man?
Well, they always say don't trust a bald-headed hairdresser or a skinny chef, right? But man, we worked with women predominantly, right? So it was an awesome gig. It was a lot of fun. But that's in my past. I sold that business to my first apprentice at that time. They're still going. That business, I think, is on year 18 now or something like that. Wow. And, I'll check in and see how they're doing. And they're doing great. They're expanding. They're still using our same systems and processes. And that's what I really transferred over, man. Just getting systems and processes together. And then obviously, understanding how to really, form a team and train a team.
Yeah. So you took action, you got into real estate. Obviously, over time, 8 years period of time, you've had great success. So that's awesome, man.
A lot of ups and downs, as you well know, right?
Well, dude, that's my story too.
Yeah, man. There's no, I got to tell you, anybody that sits there and say they crushed it the whole time, they're completely lying. There's a lot of ups and downs. But you just navigate through it. And we started Skipforce 4 years ago, I think. And I don't know, if you really knew me, you know that I just technology, like I can barely log in, right? And the fact that I'm able to kind of run this business also is just another thing that you just put your head down and you're like, hey, I think I could serve people, and I think I could bring a product that serves people to the market, and things just open up for you.
That's wild, man. So you wouldn't be a self-proclaimed tech guy or like an integrator. Well, would you consider yourself an integrator?
No, someone I'm such a visionary that I'm off the charts on that side. Truthfully, I mean, I'm so far on the visionary side that I have to surround myself with integrators or nothing will get done.
Yeah.
So I need people, and I have people on my team that are going, hey, Mike, this idea is great. Everything else sucks. Let's run with that.
That's wild. So I'm trying to think when skip tracing got popular. I mean, I've been in the business for 9 going on 10 years myself. And skip tracing has been around since the beginning of when I started. But I think obviously with more people getting in the business, more education, like people realize how important skip tracing, not to mention good skip tracing, is. But you can't just simply rely on just that. Like you got to do more. So what even caused you to start Skipforce? What caused you to start a skip tracing company?
That's a great question. I mean, we were one of the first people in our territory to, integrate texting. And that was probably about 6 years ago. We were beta for some platforms at that time. And at that time, I think skip tracing was like, 18 cents, 20 cents, something like that.
Yeah, pricey.
Yeah. And even then that was pretty low compared to even years before that. Cause I think, you pay $1, probably like 8 or 9 years ago. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So just like anything else, I'm like, man, that's such a heavy cost. Cause when you do telecommunications marketing, which is texting and cold calling, it's a shotgun approach. So you're going through a lot of data, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just a numbers game. And so we're like, hey, listen, how can I find great data at a better price? And so we did that within our business. And then once we like, okay, hey, listen, this is fantastic data. Why shouldn't we just, sell it to other people? And that's what we did. So it just started as a need for our personal business, and it grew into a business.
Where do you even start with that? Like, hey, I need better data. Like, how do you know where to even go?
Dude, it was a rabbit hole, brother. I mean, so
and you found the rabbit?
I found one of the rabbits. So there's multiple rabbits, right? But the rabbit that I found was different from everybody else's rabbit, which is really cool. So there's a cool part of it in like you're bringing something new to the market. The uncool part of it is you're bringing something new to the market in a sense that you have to educate them. And they're like, what? Like, for example, we provide carrier level data. So most of the data on skip tracing is from the credit bureaus. We get it from the phone carriers. And so we provide a different data set. Like we provide the top 3 phone numbers. We provide a thing called an optimal call window. We could tell you the time of day that phone number is most active. So if you call during that 2-hour window, your connection rate skyrockets, right? And these are things that were new when we introduced it 4 years ago. So I remember when I first introduced it, people were looking at me sideways like, yeah, are you making this up? Like, no, dude, it's super real. And it just took a little while for people to, kind of understand it. And we were able to not, to get it at such a high volume and get it for such a good price, we're able to transfer that price over to our clients. And so, I mean, it's just one of those things that you make a lot of mistakes, you kind of fall forward, but in your heart that you're providing a great product and at a great price, and you just try to take care of your customers.
Yeah. So you're saying that carrier data is better than credit bureau data?
No, I'm not saying it's better because there's a lot of great data sets. So there's this term didn't even exist several years ago. So now it's called tier 1 data, tier 2 data. So just like with property data, when it comes to skip tracing, everything has to do with timing, right? And also if you get it fresh enough, because our target market is constantly changing their numbers.
Sure.
And then also when there's certain repositories that are different. So say a carrier repository is different from a credit repository. So a prime example of that, if you want to test like IDI, everybody knows who IDI is, right? We could get 15 to 20% of numbers that they can't get. It's not in their repository at all. They could get 15 to 20% of numbers that we cannot get, right? And then we even incorporate that within our platform where we have, our carrier and a credit, and we call it skip stacking, where we waterfall, both the lists to try to get the best ones. And I know this is probably like a little bit, I don't know if it's advanced is the right word, but a little bit bizarre, but
it's nerdy. You got me excited.
Yeah. You want to manipulate things as much as you can because you're talking about percentages and putting yourself in the right place to win as much as possible because it's such a competitive game.
That's pretty wild. So why don't certain, so you said you basically do a waterfall approach where you kind of layer in the different data sets to try to get the best quality. Why doesn't everybody do that? Why doesn't, if one is perceived better than the other, why don't they, get that data? Like what?
So it's expensive. That's one. It's super expensive. And two, this game is an inexact game, right? So everybody's like, this is the best data, whatever. It's like a weatherman. We're 50% wrong. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just the nature of it. Anybody that sits there and goes, hey, we got, 80, 90% right, they're lying. I've tested millions. When I say millions, I'm talking about millions in all the databases, right? So what you want to do is that you just want to make these little incremental progresses, incremental advantages, like 10% here, 15% there to really salvage the data because data is expensive. Like most investors, what they do is like they'll buy a list. They say they'll get a list of 10,000 properties, absentee or whatever the case is, and they'll burn right through it. 50% of it is wrong, and they don't do anything with that other 50%, but they just go out and get another list, right? And so you're just throwing money away because that other 50% is the harder to find numbers. It's the number that you really want to focus on the most. What do we call them? Unperforming phone numbers. You said a brand. Yeah. So those are the ones you really want to focus on the most. And so when you go through your data set, one of the biggest things you want to do when you're going through your dialer or your text platform is to identify what we call in this industry RPC, the right person contact. So even if they're not interested in selling, that should be your number one KPI. Where most people, number one KPI is like, do we get a lead out of it? Right? That should not be your number one KPI. When you're executing telecommunications marketing, it should be, okay, is that the right person contact? What list are they on? Are they on a distress list? If they're on a high equity list, that might be different. But if they're on a distress list and I got the right person contact, now I could retarget them with other campaigns and other things, right? To get in front of them at the right time, because that's really what it is, timing, Mm-hmm. You want to be in front of them right when they're raising their hand.
All right. So my brain's spinning here. I'm trying to think how we can help the audience listening. I think, let's see. So if I'm listening to this myself, I'm hearing some important things about, I want to get in front of the right person. And rather than tracking if I'm just getting leads, I want to know if I got the right person. Like that person owns the house, right?
Absolutely.
Whether they're interested or not, that's something different. But whether I got in touch with the right person, because I have to admit myself, I haven't given enough attention to my own data. And I was just looking at some of the KPIs from my team, and half of the numbers were showing in the report as wrong numbers. Right. So that's not the right person contact, as you put it, the RPC. It's the wrong number. So either they just said it was the wrong person because they didn't want to be contacted, or they said, no, I'm John, I'm not Bill, right? So I think that's interesting. What's the solution to that? How can someone be in that situation and say, well, I got the wrong data, I already skip traced it, what do I do now?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question, right? So it depends, and we came up with a solution for that, by the way. So out of that 50%, we'll take the the unresponsive numbers coming back, non-performing, so we call it, and we'll run it through another database to try to squeeze it out, like I said. But we have something within our system because how we track the data is by activity level for the past 24 months. And so we could give it a grade, right? Each number is a grade based on the activity level associated to that person for the last 24 months. If you give us a number from another database, from say, we'll just use IDI. If you give us a number from IDI and you're like, hey, this is an unperforming number, we could grade it. And then we could tell you if there is another number that it has a higher grade associated with that prospect. And if we do, then that's what we send you. If we can't produce it and say that's the best number, we'll tell you that's the best number. We don't charge anything at all. So that's called the prime number generator through our system.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if someone is got those non-performing numbers, they then basically run it through another process through Skipforce to try to, like you said, squeeze out numbers that are performing, numbers that are potentially more accurate, and then that'll help you get closer to reaching the right person.
Right. And then the other percentage, because you're not going to get 100% of those, then the other percentage, that is the percentage that you mail. Right. That is the percentage that you send that mail or try to get in another, find in another campaign. But for me, I used to blast out 25K pieces of mail a month. Right. And the reason why we switched over to telecommunications was that it was so much more efficient, but the data management piece really had to be in there. Otherwise, you're just spraying, and that's what most people do.
So for those small set of data that you couldn't get anything from, one of the strategies you're saying is you could send direct mail. If it's a small enough list, maybe some of those people in certain markets are door knocking or doing something like that, right? Is there anything else people can do from a data standpoint to try to make contact with those people? Is there anything in terms of getting in touch with relatives or some other source online to try to find those people and make contact with them?
I mean, I think that on your phase one and your primary outreach is pretty tough, right? I mean, if it's a really niche list, like you're talking about deceased or something like that, then I think it's definitely worth your time to go and find the relatives, right? Mm-hmm. But it just depends on the type of list that you're looking for. The more niche it is, the harder it is. Obviously, there's more gold there, but it's going to take a lot more legwork, right? Mm-hmm. Is that the answer that you're looking for?
Yeah. Trying to get to that because there's some people that I've listened to and put to practice myself and gotten results where, hey, those non-performers, the people who are basically not getting any data back, most people aren't going to make contact with them because they just can't get a hold of them. So are you going to just take that for what it's worth, or are you going to go the extra mile to try to get in contact with them? So
I would always go the extra mile. That's where the real gold is, right? I mean, most people that are executing telecommunication marketing is usually just going for the lowest hanging fruit. And I think the mindset is really wrong. And this is why some people go, hey, listen, cold calling doesn't work for me. Well, your mindset going into it is wrong. One, it's a pipeline play, right? Very rarely are you going to contact somebody out cold. They raise their hand and go, hey, I'll sell my house at 50%. And there's, and you can execute it right on the spot, right? More times than not, you're reaching them before they decide to sell. You're nurturing that relationship. That sales cycle is longer, right? It's usually probably about 4 months on average. Whereas a direct mail or PPC, they're coming to you and that sales cycle is a lot shorter, right? So you have to have the right mindset. You have to have the right follow-up. One of the reasons why we started ISA Pros was because anytime a client was like, hey, listen, we're not cold calling anymore. We're not skip tracing. I always want to dive in and go, what's going on? Let's take a look at your business. How are you training your cold callers? How are you training your lead managers? And more times than not, I would have to say a very high percentage, they're just not training them well enough. They're not nurturing their leads well enough. You have a lead and that ISA or that agent is just bypassing it because they're just so script oriented that they just bypass the pain. Have you ever listened to some of your agents or some other people's agents that call you? It's painful, right?
Yeah. Oh, no question.
And so, man. So that's why we started like, okay, there's a space here. We can help our clients with it because we've been doing it for so long. And to teach an agent especially somebody from the Philippines or international agent, to have active listening skills, to really kind of dive into when there is a pain point, or to say the right thing or an objection, or more, just as importantly, tonality takes a lot of time. Takes a lot of practice, you know what I mean? And a lot of us, we just want to talk to motivated sellers. We don't want to sit there 3 or 4 hours a week drilling with our ISAs, but that's what's required.
Yeah. I got to say, that's one of the biggest lack of skill in the industry right now when it comes to the sales aspect is active listening. Yeah. I think it's just, and it's not like you got to be a pro to know how to do that. You just have to be trained properly to listen. People are giving you the answers you need. If you're ignoring those answers and you're just going through a script and asking questions, then you're not going to have a real conversation, right? And it's not 100%. Really going to get what you need, the information you need. You're not going to absorb it and make those decisions to ultimately get it in the right position to be a sale. So that's great, man. I didn't know enough about ISA pros and what you guys did, but that's clearly an area, as I've experienced firsthand, getting calls from cold callers about my rental properties, that, the skill's just not there. So it's obviously needed.
It's just a waste of money for a lot of investors. Waste of money on the data, waste of money, obviously, on the employees, the wages. It's painful. So, I mean, the reason why you haven't heard about it is because we just launched it. Truthfully, we just launched it. We just gone through beta just to make sure, hey, do we have a product, right? Do we have something that's valuable? And so the answer was yes. And now you'll see a lot more of it.
Amazing. Awesome, man. Well, cool. So I think something I would like to know and get curious to see your opinion. Talked about the data. We talked about what you can do to help improve your actual results, right, with ISA pros, and how to manage your data right. Where should someone start? So if someone's just getting started and they're like, okay, this information was great. I know Skip Force can help me with my data, and this is specifically what they're doing as to why it will help me and how I need to really pay attention to what those right person contacts are, as you put it. Where should someone start? Like, what's the list someone should start with? What's the marketing channel they should start with? What's your opinion on that based on everything that you've seen, all the clients you have?
Yeah. So I would, because usually when you're starting, more times than not, you don't have a lot of capital. Right. I mean, and even if you did have a lot of capital, you don't want to just go in and burn and turn because you're not sure what to do. I mean, sales is such a big component of what we do. Right. Yep. I would get a list. I would pull Absentee. They're probably right now the most motivated. I would pull an Absentee list. I would skip trace it. I would get a dialer. Don't try to just dial it yourself. Just get a dialer. Make sure that you have a bunch of phone numbers. Like we have 50 numbers per agent. I know that sounds crazy, but you have to rotate those numbers all the time because the carriers are flagging it as spam. So you want to rotate it every 250, 500 calls. You know what I mean? And I would just get on the phone. I would understand sales. The best sales system, right? I think, bar none, is the Sandler sales system. And all the people that are teaching, sales in our space right now, their framework is the Sandler sales system. And, of course, everybody knows Chris Voss. I would really study that guy. There's another book that I love. It's called Gap Selling. I would just really ingratiate myself in the process of sales. I would call people, and it's going to be painful at first. And, you just get better at it and you'll start locking up deals. And after that, once you understand that, then you could train other people to do that. And truthfully, like our cost per contract with cold calling is relatively cheap. It's about $1,800. You know what I mean? Compared to like 5,000 for direct mail or 6,000, you know what I mean? 4,000 to 6,000 for direct mail and PPC, depending on the area that you live in. I know in California, it's way higher, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what I would do. I would pull an Absentee list. I would go network also as much as possible because who's in trouble right now? A lot of investors. A lot of investors are in trouble right now. We're buying houses from investors that They just ran out of money. Pretty much the rug has been pulled underneath us 6 months ago, and people are running out of money. So I would network. And if you're not sure how to execute, man, find somebody that does it and bring them value, right? Give them the lead and work with them. And, you're going to split the equity, or you're going to have to give up a lot of your equity, but you're going to learn a lot. So that would probably be to make a long answer, to make a short answer really long, that would be my advice to people.
Well, man, you're echoing a lot of what I preach. I tell anybody, especially if they're getting started, man, one of the quickest ways to accelerate your growth and your success is to take the time and effort and energy to level up, get some skills, and not just wait around for a deal. Obviously, you got to put in some of the work yourself to learn those skills. Go find some qualified leads and take it to someone who's super experienced, who is going to get that lead, convert it into a deal, maximize it, get the best return on it, and you get the benefit from that maximization of the deal. And now you've gained a relationship with that experienced person. That's the quickest way to start getting faster results, because you got that proximity to someone who's experienced. You get the deal done, much higher chances of getting the deal done and making more on it. So I love that you learn.
And the thing is, you got to be long. I mean, if you're getting into this game, you can't be short-sighted. This is not a get rich quick, game. And I think that's the fallacy that you hear. Like, hey, you get into this with no money. And that's why, there's a lot of things that stigmatizes wholesaling, right? But if you want to be in this game, it's super fruitful. But man, you got to put the time in to skill stack, just like you said, right? So absolutely, brother.
Okay, so you said absentee lists, which, man, it continues to be a good list no matter what marketing channel, because there's a lot of absentee owners, people that own rentals, and if times get tough, they don't live there. So that's likely the first thing to go, right? Turn that equity into some capital and money in their pocket.
Yeah. We're dealing with a lot of squatters now too.
A lot of squatters. Yeah. We're dealing with that in California like crazy. So tenant issues, people wrecking the property. So that all makes sense to me as well. You talked about networking, no doubt about that. And you said marketing strategy. So you'd say cold calling is one of the best ways to get started. You're thinking texting. What do you think about texting right now?
I think texting, they put so much regulations on it. The reason why I think it works for people now is because most people left, right? And before it was flooded. So I love going in where everybody else leaves to a certain degree. But there's a lot of regulation that's being imposed upon texting, and it's imposed upon cold calling too. It's a cat and mouse game, right? The reason why I like telecommunications marketing is because I'm an aggressive person. I like to go and hunt. I want to find the deal. I hate having to wait for somebody to call me. Now, I think it's important to have that inbound, outbound component in your business. There's no doubt about that. But a lot of people, you're getting started, you don't have the money for a really effective PPC campaign, or a really effective direct mail, because that takes 6 months. Most people, the worst thing they can do is they start a direct mail and then they cut it off in 2 months, right? Or 3 months, because they're not seeing the results. So if you're going to commit to something you can afford to do for 6 months. Yeah,
I love that. Well, this has been great, man. I've been excited to just dive in and nerd out. For anybody who's looking for a good skip tracing company, check out Skip Force. We'll have a link down below that you guys can get direct access and get in touch with Mike's team here. Again, if you're looking for help with your cold callers and training them, ISA Pros just launched, which is awesome. It was awesome to learn about that and how you're helping them there to make sure that they're working on those active listening skills. Cause I know that's seemingly a lost art in a lot of the cold calling companies. So that's awesome, man. If you guys want to connect with Mike, again, you guys can go to Instagram, Mike_Singletary3. Connect with him there. Mike, any last words, man?
And I'm just, grateful to be on. I appreciate it. I hope we brought value, and I look forward to meeting you in person in another month.
Yes, sir. Look forward to it. All right, guys. Great to have Mike on. Another great guest. Until next time, everybody. Peace.
Peace out.